When I'm composing for film, my approach is pre-production sessions with live musicians, and I'll record what we call the vibe tracks. Like, for example, if it's a thriller and to have kind of an industrial sound, but they want it to sound like a rock band, or even some of the stuff that happened in Iron Man 2. We'd get the players in to a great studio, something like Ocean Way or East West or something, and just kind of do different sessions that would sound like whatever genre we would do as a record. Like if they want something that sounds like Nine Inch Nails, we would kind of really go hard on things like culture vultures and filters and things like that. And when you want to go orchestral, then you get an orchestra. You do the session old school, like at Abbey Road Studios or Air Studios London, or here on the scoring stages. But then what I always do is that I use a lot of different approaches, both software and hardware, to put a different twist on the score that makes it more mine. And McDSP plugins, for example, like I use a lot on orchestras, because I think orchestras can sound very traditional. And to the average listener, I think like when you see it in the theater, it's one thing. But if you're enjoying the soundtrack, it's hard sometimes with orchestras because the sound, the way that you mic orchestras with decatries and stuff like that is so traditional that sometimes you don't have that transient response that you would on a record where you can, or even a Beatles record. So my approach is I try to make everything sound like a record, like I'm thinking of the soundtrack at the same time that I'm thinking of the movie. So I'm thinking, how can we make this punchy and effective for the film? But also, if you were to hear it on its own, it would be a complete piece of music. Even if it's something ambient, directors also feel like that's what they're getting. They're getting a more modern approach to scoring that integrates a lot of detail to loops, custom sounds, tweaking of orchestra, sound design, things like that. And in the songwriting approach, everything goes together because I'm always thinking of it as a cohesive song. Whether it's a cue or it's the main title or whatever it is, it has to have sections, it has to be dynamic, it has to have a hook. You think the same way that you would writing and producing, except your palette is so much wider. So it's very interesting because you can call in anything from a Middle Eastern section to an old school steel guitar pedal steel thing. It's endless.